Welcome to the Africa Archive Open Science webinar series, where we bring together researchers, practitioners, and thought leaders to discuss how openness, collaboration, and innovation can strengthen research and create lasting impact across Africa and beyond.
Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to our Open Science webinar series here at Africa Archive. My name is Keletso Masisi and I will be your moderator for today. I am the project coordinator at Africa Archive. If you are joining us for the first time, maybe a little bit about ourselves and who we are and what we do. My team and I at Africa Archive provide a platform for African researchers and African institutions to publish their work for free, and also provide a platform for them to be more discoverable regionally and internationally. And on our session today, our topic is going to be on African journals online, journey in strengthening African scholarly publishing. And our speaker is going to be Kylie Van Zyl, and she'll be taking us through the session today. So we expect you to learn a little bit about AJOL's history, learn a little bit about journal publishing practices and standards, and a bit of the highlights on the ALMASI Project and Diamond Open Access, and a little bit about our speaker today before we continue. Kylie has worked variously as an administrator, university archivist, and freelance editor before completing her PhD in 2019, joining AJOL in December 2020, and finally finding her niche. A health historian by training, Kylie is passionate about African development, African knowledge, and promoting African research visibility regionally and globally. And before I welcome Kylie to speak, I would like to highlight to the audience that towards the end of the session, you will have a segment of questions and answers where you'll be able to ask the questions. Alternatively, you can pop in your questions into the chat, and my team and I will be able to see those questions. Kylie, the floor is yours.
Hey, thank you very, very much for having me, Keletso. I'm so glad to be here today. And thank you for this chance to share the story of AJOL, which is a magnificent institution, although I would say that, that does a great deal for the visibility of African research. I'm going to share my screen now. So AJOL is, can everybody see my slides? Yes. Okay, cool. So, okay, no. Right, so AJOL is an indexing and hosting platform of African published scholarly journals. Our main focus is journals from Africa dealing with African issues, although, of course, if you have any issue is welcome, because knowledge web is global. You cannot draw a border around knowledge. We have been around since the year 2000, so coming up on our 26th year now, which is insane. And we are a non-profit organization supported solely by donor and supporter funding. And what we do is we work to increase the global and continental access to information for and by Africans. We strongly believe that Africa can provide the solutions to its own problems. Our local knowledge is incredibly valuable, both regionally on the continent and globally, and we deserve and should be full players in the global information and scholarly publishing ecosystem. And AJOL's goal is to make it as easy as possible for African research to be visible. So we work for, like it says on a slide here, the equitable amplification of African voices in global research systems. You will note that the word equitable comes up a lot. Equity is our watchword. So what we provide is free online hosting for journals indexed on AJOL, as well as technical services. We provide training and support, specifically in using the Open Journal System software, OJS, which some of you may be familiar with already. And we provide an alternative to commercial databases, which, as I'm sure everybody here knows, can be something of a difficult to get into, let's put it that way. Those are international, we are equally international, and we're non-commercial. And we put African research on the map. I actually literally have a map through massive online visibility, which I will touch on in a moment. And our offerings are for editors. I work primarily with editors. My colleagues work with researchers, authors, higher education professionals, policymakers, syllabus creators, librarians, early career researchers, very early career researchers, and like everybody is interconnected. Like there's no group of people engaged in research that we are not interested in reaching out to. We're a long-lived institution. We have a global reputation and an extensive network within Africa as well as the global north. And I would really love to see AJOL work more with partners in India and rather the global south, Indonesia, India, Southeast Asia, South America. And we are indeed working on becoming more and more enmeshed in those through collaborations, which I will talk about in another part of my slideshow. And we have the unique JPPS platform, which provides a way of assessing a journal's quality that has nothing to do with the impact factor. I will speak more about that as well. We're Pan-African, and one of the more unusual things about us, I think, is that we are female-dominated. We have one male staff member, and the sector is male-dominated, so we think that's pretty good as well. Why do we have to do this? Well, as everybody here does know already, Africa has not had a particularly great experience when it comes to getting taken seriously on the global field. We have had 500 years of extractivist economics, and we are, as a result, not taken particularly seriously in a lot of the time. And that is, not to put too fine a point on it, nonsense. African research is as good as everybody else's, but we battle with the global, learning to play by the rules that were made hundreds of years ago in situations very different to those that anybody is experiencing today. So we promote the quality of African research. We promote trust in scholarly publishing from Africa. We like to think that our work promotes investment in higher education, and investment in higher education means economic development. The more accessible knowledge is, the more good it can do. So we promote real, contextually relevant solutions. I'm sorry, it does sound like we're trying to do everything, and that's partly because we are trying to do everything through the very simple method of running this enormous database. And when it comes to the size of it, for example, we have journals from 40 countries. We are dominated at the moment by, as you see, the darker colors indicate more journals from that area. So South Africa, Nigeria, Algeria, Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, great representation. But as you will see, not a lot of penetration into Niger, Chad, Mauritania, those regions. We're working on that. AJOL is a very small team. We've recently increased from 6 people to 9 who administer the entirety of AJOL's offerings. Is done by 9 people. So again, another thing everybody here will be familiar with. Many people doing many things. Right, and this is what we can offer journals who are like indexed on AJOL. So many downloads. I have a graph. Excellent. And now that's nearly 2.5 million downloads in May this year. 2.5 million downloads, which is an astounding number. If you're on AJOL, people can definitely find you. We have 950 journals and counting. It's going to be at least 1,000 by the end of August, I think, depending on how fast the paperwork is done. 444 of those are fully open access. We do index both subscription-based and open access journals, although we have found that open access is obviously far more common. 271 of those are diamond open access, which is to say that they charge no fees to read or download, and also no APCs or related fees. As you can see here, we're talking hundreds of thousands of articles which are lodged online. And once they're on AJOL, they're freely available everywhere forever. AJOL is completely free. Okay, so what do we offer journals? Journal quality. assessment through the Journal Publishing Practices and Standards framework. As I have touched on, journal quality is a concern for journals in the Global South. I'm sorry, my slide says Southern, should say Global South. They face challenges. We all know this, I've spoken about it. And the JPPS framework provides a way for journals to join the flow of internationally accessible journals without having to meet really high and complex quality standards right from the get-go. The idea behind the JPPS is that you learn as you progress. So we're not expecting journals to come in brilliant in order to be included. You can come in while you are still learning how everything works. The JPPS is designed to give journals a way to improve their editorial practice and improve their publishing protocols live while still being accessible. So it's a learning tool, and it is also an excellent way for journal users, researchers, students, people putting together syllabi to gauge which journals on AJOL are of certain qualities. The protocol has 3 levels. There's 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, with 1-star being sort of entry level and 3-star being the highest we can award. The number of 3-star journals used to be quite small, but luckily our efforts are paying off and the number of 3-star journals is increasing. And the JPPS is very detailed. We check everything down to, is the punctuation consistent? Is spelling consistent? Are you sticking to your own rules? It's exhaustive. It takes a long time. It generates a great deal of paperwork, and we think that it works quite well as a way for journals to see what they're doing well, see what they need to work on, and work towards improvement. Testing like peer review best practice. That's very important to journal quality. Editorial transparency, governance and planning, discoverability, archiving, accessibility. Is your journal being indexed properly? Are you sticking to your own peer review protocols? Are your author guidelines comprehensive? Will authors know precisely what to do? How does your board interact with each other? We check all of these things. Everybody is given the same assessment. It's completely egalitarian, it's standardized and transparent. And like I've said, it's designed for journals to be able to level up. And like it says here, the JPPS assists researchers by doing some of the choosing for you. You can gauge journal quality at a glance. Okay, so once you've made it through the JPPS assessment, what do you get out of joining AJOL? Free assessment. AJOL's free. It costs you nothing to apply. It costs you nothing to join. There are no barriers to entry that are financial. So free assessment or recommendations for publishing and policy improvements, free, fast and reliable indexing and web hosting for journals that are accepted. It used to be quite common for the AJOL site to be the only website for a journal. These days, we find that most have their own, but there are still a number of journals on AJOL that AJOL is the only website they have. So if you haven't got a website, but you have got a journal, let us know. We manage our own OJS completely so that your AJOL site will not be your problem to maintain. We are a de facto repository for the DOAJ because we offer free digital backups of all journal content. And also for tracking purposes, because we all answer to someone, we provide usage statistics on downloads and articles read and abstracts, etc. We give our journals free digital object identifiers through Crossref. And we also give monthly webinars and workshops. And we are hoping to, now that we have more staff, we are hoping to expand our training offerings as well. And this does say free one-to-one publishing practices and standards mentoring. We have only just recently become able to offer that. So I'm delighted to mention it here. You can ask us to tell you, what you need to do. And we freely host all of the workflow. This is all completely free. And also, we allow journal partners to flip to open access or from gold to diamond. We don't care what financial model you're using, as long as it works for you. Although we are joining the global move towards diamond, because that is the fairest and most equitable way to access research. Okay, how to get onto AJOL. Email me. I will pop my email address into the chat. If you email the email address I've just put into the chat, you will receive an auto reply, which has the application link in it. You can do it the old-fashioned way and wait for me to send it to you, but trust me, I'm very sorry, but emailing me and using the auto reply is definitely faster. All the information you need about the application is in that reply and in the form that we will direct you to. And any other questions, you can always email that same address, and we will revert with guidance. I don't know if anybody is still publishing solely in hard copy, but if you are, we will require either a scan or a physical copy of your journal. If you are a fully online journal, as most, or many at least, are these days, you will just need your link. And we will, once you are on AJOL, require access to all the full archive. We will host the full archive of all articles published by your journal. Unfortunately, this hurts me to admit, unfortunately, we cannot currently host data sets, etc. We're only hosting articles at the moment, but I believe that there are other places to put those. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of how journals get onto AJOL here beyond assessment. It's a short process. It's not your problem. It would be our problem. Okay, so yes, we can. As Joe points out, you can use Africa Archive to share that data. So a particularly exciting new development for AJOL has been our global collaborations. We, as many of us will know, sometimes can feel as though we're working in a vacuum, like local efforts go unnoticed. I assure you they do not, mostly thanks to the extreme work of our executive director, Susan Murray. We are involved currently in 2 or 3, well, I think I will be speaking about 2 especially interesting and I want to say profitable global collaborations. Our first is the ALMASI project, which is the Aligning and Mutualizing Non-Profit Open Access Publishing Services internationally. Speakers of Kiswahili will realize that ALMASI is the word for diamond. It's fortunate indeed that they managed to make the acronym work. And it is a very big project that has run from 2025 and will run until possibly 2024 until 2027, with 16 collaborators, including Redalik from Mexico, Operas, the ECDH, AJOL from Africa, and it's all part of the European Union's Horizon Europe program, which means it is quite well funded and also quite large and wide-ranging. And what it's doing is getting into the real details of how the Diamond Open Access movement is working or not working in Latin America, Africa, and Europe. Unfortunately, it doesn't cover the whole world. I would very much like to see what it might tell us about Asia, for example. And the outcome of this is the design and alignment of Diamond Open Access quality standards globally, as well as the creation of training resources that can support Diamond journals or journals that wish to become Diamond, as well as policymakers, because one of the major takeaways from every meeting I've ever attended on Diamond Open Access is that its success relies on uptake by policymakers, which is the ALMASI Project's real goal, is to influence policy and help everybody become consistent in how they enact Diamond Open Access. Okay, so AJOL is ALMASI's African node, which is fantastic for us, although it has come with quite a lot of responsibility for us, because it is a great responsibility representing Africa, a very varied and very actively evolving region in terms of scholarly publishing. So we bring the regional expertise, and we represent African journals and African editors in the project. And we're sort of concentrating on ensuring that African regional diamond open access contexts and needs are discovered. Because, again, as others here will know, we are often overlooked. We are often not taken fully into account. We're often made to fit in with what other places are doing, and we would like to be included as more of a full member, please. So we're very pleased that we are now given the opportunity to contribute here. And the fact that we have access to hundreds, nearly a thousand journals hosted on the platform gives us a very detailed, very localized understanding of how scholarly publishing looks on the continent. What are the landscapes? How do they differ from one another? What is different in terms of implementation versus intention, etc. And we will assist in designing the quality standards that the program is meant to come up with in supporting what journals need to know and to do, what editors need to know and to do, what policymakers, the same. So make sure everybody has the information they need to prosper. We also have another project as well as ALMASI, which is the AIFL AJOL WACRN Collaboration for Sustainable Open Access Publishing in Africa. Some of you may know or have encountered AIFL previously, Electronic Information for Libraries, another NPO that works globally, enabling access to knowledge through work directly with libraries. They are based in Lithuania, I believe, but they have a strong African presence. We also work with, excuse me, we also work with WACRN, the West and Central African Research and Education Network, another nonprofit. I mean, I'm just going to stop saying nonprofit. Everybody is nonprofit. Another regional network that supplies internet connectivity, digital assistance, and infrastructure to connect national research and education networks called NRENs, and thereby allow deeper collaboration between research and education communities in the region. So if you are in West Africa, please reach out to WACRN. Otherwise, if you would like to know more about this project, please reach out to AJOL, and we will see, or you can just go to AIFL's website where they also have a lot of the information. So what this project has in mind is a much smaller project with a much narrower remit than ALMASI, but it concentrates on Africa. It needs to identify the challenges editors face in establishing and sustaining diamond open access, which is very, very, very difficult to do, as those of you here who are doing it will know. Our goal is to host increasing numbers of diamond open access journals on AJOL. If you are a diamond open access journal or you know one and believe that it would benefit from being indexed by AJOL, please apply. Please apply. That's quite important for the success of the journals as well as AJOL and this project, so everybody wins. And this project is a 3-year project, which is the intention to strengthen collaboration on diamond open access and funding and policy commitments. I myself do not work directly on this project, except in a tangential way, so I'm a little bit less up to speed with the minutiae than I would like to be, but please feel free to ask questions about it in the Q&A session. Right, and I think we may be ahead of time, and that brings me to the end of my presentation. Any questions are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kylie. That was very interesting. I think the audience can attest to that. I see that Dr. Jama on the audience is agreeing to your comments on open access. And I think you made a comment that hit home for me, where you said the more accessible education is, the more usable it is. I think the audience can also agree to that. And it's important for African research. So thank you so much for that insightful presentation. I think we'll be moving on to the Q&A session. You are free to pop in your questions on the chat and we will look at those. And one of the questions that popped in while you're still talking, Kylie, is how frequently do you reassess JPPs for the journals?
So we are doing it annually going forward. There have been a few years where it hasn't been possible to reassess due to staffing issues, but we are now launching ourselves forward. It will be done annually. If you would like to request a reassessment, if you've made recent changes or improvements to the journal, please feel free to email and we will schedule you, but otherwise it's done annually. And we're starting it next week. So if you are waiting for a reassessment, it will come soon.
Okay. All right. I see there's another question from Ina Smith in the chat as well. It says, is there a waiting period before getting listed and indexed on AJOL?
Technically, no. We do not have a mandated waiting period. There is a delay while we get to you in the queue. We assess on a first come, first serve basis. However, our current chief assessor is, how do I say this without showing myself up? Our current assessor is much faster than I ever was. So the waiting period, yes, the waiting period is getting shorter, but yes, there is a slight delay in between the application coming in and the final assessment. It used to be up to a year. It is now only a few weeks.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Another question is, somebody's saying that they would like to increase the article type on AJOL, and how do they get that done?
I must admit that I don't know the answer to that. If you would like to host more than one type of content, unfortunately, we are kind of restricted to articles, but there's no restriction to the number of articles you can upload. In terms of display, I am not sure, and I would urge you to email in where I can ask somebody who works more directly with that.
Okay, and I think you also shared your email, so if there's anybody in the audience as well who is interested in asking further, if there are any questions that can be clarified right now, you can email Kylie and she'll be able to answer your questions. And you're also free to keep on participating in the chat. My team and I will be able to see those questions. And Kylie, another question is, what are some of the major challenges that are facing African scholarly journals today? And in your opinion, how has AJOL adapted its support mechanisms to address these challenges?
Okay, so one of the major things that I feel is facing African journals at the moment is, I just want to open another part of my, sorry, I just need to open my notes.
Okay, no problem.
So give me a second. But the main thing, I believe, is that the rate of technological change is intense and keeping up is almost a full-time job. For example, the advent of AI has introduced a whole new set of challenges. But one of the major challenges is just getting online. Internet penetration is very uneven across the continent. Access to internet is incredibly uneven across the continent, and it's just difficult to do all this stuff. So once you can get online, much easier. Another challenge is funding. Funding is scarce. We all know this. You have to fight tooth and nail for every cent. So funding is a major challenge. AJOL gets around that by trying not to exclude anybody on the basis of whether they can afford it financially. We think that funding being a barrier is a major issue. So we're completely free. Regarding technological changes, let AJOL handle that. We will keep ahead of. We are keeping an eye on AI. How can we use AI? What should we be careful of? For example, the move from DOIs to include the Africa PID Alliance and the ROAR. The interoperability and discovery are other major challenges. It's all very well adopting a system, but it has to interlace with other systems to be worthwhile, and that's quite tricky to do, especially if you are also teaching and marking and doing your own research and trying to write up your own research. AJOL just, hand those problems over to somebody else. Let AJOL handle that for you. I'm not sure if that answers. I could talk about this all day.
Yes, no, I totally understand. And I like that you also mentioned the issue right now about artificial intelligence. I think we can all agree that the advancement has been really quick. And I think just trying to adjust to that is also very helpful for researchers and institutions. And I think one of the challenges you mentioned earlier is about the quality of African journals. So just trying to make sure that the quality is more increased is also important as well.
Yes, just keeping up with changing requirements, that is very challenging. It used to be sort of 5 years ago, 10 years ago, nobody cared if you charged a subscription fee. And now journals are having to change their entire financial model to exist in a new situation. And that's quite stressful for everyone.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to take another question from the chat, Kylie. One is, can journals listed in AJOL maintain their own DOI without using AJOL's DOI or identification system?
Absolutely. Yeah. You have the option of changing to AJOL, which will obviously cost you less because you won't have to pay. But yes, we are happy to work with whatever DOIs. It doesn't matter whether you have an AJOL one or somebody else's. We're totally okay with that.
Okay. There's somebody who's appreciating your presentation, just as I did earlier. And the question they would like to understand is what practical steps a country like Lesotho can take to be included in the next AJOL dataset, especially given the client's limited number of index journals.
Okay, so to get into the next AJOL dataset, my suggestion is just contact us. We will work with you on how best that can be done for you. We don't work on a country level so much as on the level of individual journals, but you know, what we have found with journals from some smaller countries, for example, Lesotho, despite being very near South Africa, doesn't, as Letsatsi points out, have a lot of index journals. So just get them onto AJOL and we can work. I'm sorry, it does sound like a sales pitch, doesn't it? Get them onto AJOL, but please do get them onto AJOL. We can certainly overcome and work with you to get more journals from Lesotho onto the platform very easily.
Okay. Another one is, are editors required to manage the workflow of all journals in the OJS dashboard, or do you assist them, and what percentage of that work do they do it themselves?
It varies from journal to journal. Currently, AJOL has, I think, a handful only, less than 10 journals who handle the entire workflow for themselves, which is to say they handle peer review, submissions, etc., through the AJOL OJS. Editors are not required to do that. Not everybody has time, not everybody has capability. Editors are not required to manage the workflow of all journals using the OJS dashboard, but it's good to learn how to do that. And if you do wish to learn, we do assist. I'm not sure if that answers the question, but we do provide assistance where assistance is needed. As in terms of the percentage, I'm afraid I would be absolutely sucking my thumb. I don't know what percentage that would be. Okay.
All right. So another question is about African languages. What about the knowledge produced in the African languages, which they think is still living behind? So I think the question is around the inclusion of African languages in publishing.
I hear you. I believe that we need to expand the number of languages we support. English has the linguistic hegemony of English in research globally, but in Africa in particular, is completely unchallenged. So AJOL is working to offset that by if you publish in Kiswahili, isiZulu, any of those, we will publish whatever language the research is in. Currently, however, we do require an English abstract, and this is for metadata purposes, which can be a bit of an issue for journals providing a translated abstract. That's extra work. It's often extra expense. But we actually do support whatever language you wish to be writing in. And I think it's absolutely essential to Africa's future to resist the stranglehold that English has. I would love to see more local languages, more regional languages used on AJOL and indeed in research more generally, because insisting on a particular version of English is nonsense. We no longer have one standard version of English globally. Why not? Why not use other languages? Just because research is not in English doesn't mean it's not valid, doesn't mean it's not interesting. What I am glad to what I think AI actually might do for us is make the linguistic issue a little bit less thorny, because translation now becomes easier. One caveat though is that language display, especially in alphabets other than the Roman one, can be a little bit tricky, but that's our problem, not your problem.
All right. And I think the issue of languages as well feeds into how we as researchers actually communicate with the community as well. You'll find that if you're using more local languages, the dissemination of our data and information is more received or easily received by the community. So I think it's a very important topic. So I'm very glad that you mentioned that.
Thank you. It's also very important to note that as let me just scroll up to see who said that. So as Joe's pointed out, an English abstract helps to get the regional language more visibility through the metadata indexing and dissemination. And yes, that is why, because currently we're not seeing great uptake of the idea that metadata should be in different languages. I'm not hearing a lot of chatter about making sure metadata is available in, okay, every language in the world. Yes, exactly. Every language of the world has deleted itself from my brain. But if you follow me, you know what I mean.
Yes.
I would like to see us get more. For example, we have quite a lot of Kiswahili at the moment, but we have almost nothing from West Africa. So I'm very keen for any from other parts of Africa. Please start publishing in your regional or local languages. We need this. Just because it's not in English doesn't mean it's not needed. Doesn't mean it's not good. Be proud. Thank you.
It's true. I think it's more of an awareness thing. Okay, another question is, what is one action you will take from this action session to support open scholarship in the community?
What is one action I would take from this session to support open scholarship in your community? Embrace change. One action to take from this is, I'm sorry, you've completely stumped me for a reply. I don't know. There are so many things I wish to do. There are so many things. What is one action I will take from this session to support open scholarship? I'm trapped. I'm paralyzed by decision. Sorry.
I think another thing we just talked about earlier is like the awareness raising around these topics. Like,
yes.
How are we publishing and how we communicating to the community? We just talked about language usage, which can make us more discoverable in our communities and make the global audience more receptive to local languages. Just another question, Kylie, on APC. Many discussions around open access focus on APCs. What is the advantage that the Diamond Open Access offers researchers and institutions in low-resourced areas, particularly those without funding? I think you mentioned something about lack of funding earlier. So if you could touch upon that. Yeah.
So Diamond Open Access completely removes the barrier that an APC presents. The average APC is astronomically expensive. There's a very large South African commercial publisher that's average APC is 10,000 South African Rand, which is a chunk of money. It's insane. Like unless your university or your funder is quite well heeled, an APC is likely to represent a substantial percentage of money available to you. If you're paying it yourself, it can often be a month's rent or a car payment, or like it's too much money. So Diamond Open Access completely dispenses with article processing charges, publication charges, page charges. There's none of that. We should not have to pay to share valuable research. And if you think about it, the academic publishing system is a slightly bananas, is that researchers pay a journal or a publisher to publish their research, and then it's published and people pay to access it. the people doing the work and the people who need the information are paying through the nose for it. And the publisher is making, in many cases, although not in all, a profit. It's a weird system. And if it was any other industry, we'd be up in arms. Like we're paying, two lots of people are giving the same person money for the same thing. It's nuts. So Diamond Open Access just dispenses with that. It is an inequitable system. It's rigged in favor of the large commercial publishers, and that's nonsense. Institutions in low resource areas will also find it much cheaper. You're not paying a great deal of budget over to commercial publishers or databases. You're spared that expense. You can use it for more necessary things. So the major advantage of Diamond Open Access is that it is incredibly cheap compared to commercial publishing. And also the way specifically the ALMASI project is also working on it. It's to make Diamond Open Access a sort of complete package, a way of not only making it your financial model, but also making it your sort of modus operandi, by putting together a standard that would encompass a lot of editorial processes as well. So Diamond Open Access encourages editorial openness. There are many strong advocates for open peer review. Open and responsible alignment practices go hand in hand with open access. So it breaks the stranglehold of hidden knowledge that's held by a few and dispensed only as crumbs. It completely breaks that sort of hoarding of knowledge wide open.
True. Actually, while you're speaking, I remember a quote from a researcher who said that most of the knowledge is left on workbenches because researchers cannot publish, and APCs most of the time is that restriction because most people don't have the funding, and having access to funding as well is also
tricky.
A problem. So I think it's a very sticky situation.
So sticky.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Keleto, people get left behind, and it's criminal. Like, I went to a well-resourced South African university. I'm a well-resourced individual, and I battled to pay APCs, and as a result, I haven't published much. And if I was to try and advance in the academic hierarchy, I would have a real problem. And at no point did anybody go, well, actually, 12,000 Rand is a big ask. So yeah.
And also, I feel like your work is also feeding into that to help African researchers, do this for free. And you also talked about the quality, because I feel like people also are afraid of the quality. They are doubting the African journal of quality. So just improving that can also help discoverability of African researchers. So I think it's very interesting, and I like that we're talking about that. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just a little bit on the ALMASI project, because I found that interesting, since I don't see any questions on the chat right now. I can throw this one at you. What aspects of the ALMASI project has shown greatest potential for strengthening African scholarly publishing? And are there any opportunities for institutions and researchers to engage within the project?
So I'll answer the second part first, is that sadly, the ALMASI project is closed. We cannot add partners at this point, and unfortunately, I feel that it would have been good to have more regional representation from people on the sharp end. So unfortunately, institutions and researchers can't engage. However, the ALMASI project is split into 5 strands. The first strand was mapping the open access landscape. What is currently in existence and where? How does it work? There is a phase which compares various journal evaluation frameworks globally. For example, Latindex over in Latin America. There's the AJOL system. There is, not the AJOL system, the JPPS, which is incidentally also used by other journals. AJOL is not the only journals online. There is Banglajol for Bangladesh, NEPJOL for Nepal, SLJOL for Sri Lanka. And, we all use the same framework, but AJOL per force only covers Africa. And as well, we're also, another strand of the ALMASI project is coming up with training resources. So basically establishing what people are doing, establishing what's best practice, and establishing how to access and implement that best practice are the major ones that will strengthen African scholarly publishing. If we can come up with a global framework that everyone is using with, please note, local adjustments to take into account local changes, because the world is not uniform. It's not supposed to be uniform, and it breaks when we try and make it uniform. People get left out, people get hurt. So, if we can come up with a flexible but globally applicable scholarly publishing diamond open access framework that covers everything from financial model to open review, it doesn't make the playing field level precisely, but it makes it a lot easier for Africa to compete using. It's not that Africa can't, it's that Africa hasn't been given a chance to do so. As you mentioned, there's still a lot of resistance to African research out there. AJOL works to overcome that, but the world is what the world is. ALMASI gives everybody the same tools. And if everybody's working from the same plan, then of course it becomes much easier to globalize everything. It's a big project, it's a slow project, it's a very granular project. So I'm interested to see how it plays out in the real world.
How it's going to develop. And I think, Kylie, also another thing you mentioned earlier is influence on policy making. I think as researchers, it's something that we overlook, how our science actually influences how policies are made. And we also have influence on policymakers, and that also touches on how we communicate that as well. So I found that interesting that it was mentioned in one of the aspects of the ALMASI project.
Yes, Diamond Open Access relies very strongly on policy buy-in by institutions and by governments. So, we have to. That's where the change happens. That's where we can help. That's where research really meets real life. Yeah.
And I think one of the takeaways as well, somebody asked earlier, is that we should also learn that our science can influence policy, and it depends on us on how we actually communicate that. So thanks for that comment, Kylie.
Thank you.
I can throw another one at you as well. In your opinion, what would success look like for African scholarly publishing in the next few years? It's a very broad question, but maybe if you could brief it up for us, I would like to hear from your expert opinion.
What would success look like? Well, I would like to see more of it being taken seriously on the global stage. We know it's good. We know we're doing good research. We need to be proud of it. We need to push it into view, because our success is going to be largely measured in what is in evidence globally. Are we publishing more? Or is more reaching where it needs to go? Have we adopted really good practices? Because these practices are not just to meet a standard, but it's also to make the running of the journals more open, easier. Those journal editors present will know that running a journal never stops. There's peer review, there's proofreading, there's arranging peer reviewers, it's getting a new board, there's succession planning, it's strategy, it's training. Our success would look like if Africa enthusiastically adopts the Diamond Open Access systems that are being developed by ALMASI and others. ALMASI is not the only. The European Diamond Capacity Hub is another, and there have been other projects, mostly in Europe. A success would look like us adopting Diamond Open Access, getting our transparent, easily accessible research onto the internet, becoming a world leader in good governance of journals. There's no reason we can't do that. Success would be implementing all these things that we know that we can do. I think our major, we can't help but be successful if we, follow the movement, become diamond, become open, become widespread, become interoperable and discoverable, and, have quality assured. Our success would look a lot like just doing everything as well as we can according to these frameworks. I don't see why that would be a problem for us. I confidently expect success. especially if
Yes,
Africa begins to
and
advocate strongly for itself.
of course, of course. And earlier you also talked about quality. I think another view on success will actually making the global audience confident in the quality of our journals. I think that's also another stronghold that we're seeing, and that actually
Absolutely.
limits the access. Yeah.
Yeah, we need to advocate for ourselves. We need to embrace, we need to trust our this is a personal feeling rather than one of AJOL's, but we need to, as Africans, we need to not apologize. Or, oh, I'm sorry, I published in a local journal. No, don't be sorry. That journal is fantastic. You should publish there. That's great. It doesn't all have to go to Frontiers. It doesn't all have to go to PLOS. It can be done here. We should just be proud. We know we're doing well. We know that our exclusion is nonsense. You know.
True, true. And also that comes to the point of awareness as well, to make people realize that, we have good quality as well. I
Yes.
think one comment I'm seeing on the chat is the importance of actually investing in this work. And I think
Yes.
somebody's also mentioning what you talked about earlier about our governments and how we can influence policy. So I think that just attesting to that. If you have any questions, you're free to raise up your hand. We can be able to see those, or alternatively, you can pop in the questions in the chat. We still have a few minutes, so you can.
I have a question.
We'll be able to see your questions. All right, Kylie, you can go ahead.
Can I ask? I'm asking. I'm opening this. Sorry, I've done this. I'm asking the floor. What do you think that AJOL needs to do to become even more useful? What is one thing that you think we could be doing to help you that we're not already doing? I will take replies by email or now.
No problem. I think, as I've said to the audience, you are free to raise your hand. We'll be able to see that. Alternatively, you can pop in your answer to Kylie's question as well on the chat. We'll be able to see that. And before we can see that, do we have any questions? I think that's a very interesting question. I think for me, just to answer, maybe I can be the first one to answer. I think awareness raising about the quality of the journals that we have in Africa would be maybe, I think, another initiative that would be helpful, to get more researchers and institutions getting to know about AJOL as well. And that, you can publish good work in an African journal. I think that's another discrepancy that we face, because people always feel like they have to pay to publish, but it's not necessarily true.
I agree. In South Africa, for example, we often have people who don't want to publish locally because they feel they won't be taken seriously. And that's, don't do that. Publish locally. Local publishing is great.
That's true. All right, we have another one. Maybe they say that maybe AJOL can have country representatives to create awareness on local institutions and individual researchers. I don't know what you think about that. Having
I think that's a great idea. Of course, yes. I would think that is a fantastic idea. For EIFL, for example, and I think possibly Wakren have local nodes, have local representative country nodes. I agree. Like, I would love to see AJOL have country representatives. With our recent expansion in staff, we are now able to think more about what we can do to sort of interact more with our users and our stakeholders. And country reps, I think that's an excellent plan, and I'm actually going to take it to my boss. Thank you.
Yes. And also, hello? Kylie, I think having these representations. I think we have a question. Okay, Hela,
yes,
Taha,
hello?
you can go ahead with your question if you have a question.
Yes. Thank you, Kelly, for this informative session.
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think that open science and these efforts are especially important in the context, if you can consider the context of scholars at risk, for example. Yes. Specifically in areas recently having ongoing conflicts. The educational system and the researchers there are suffering a lot. And I
Yes.
think that it will be a great opportunity for them to feel that, okay, number one, there is hope. There's a big hope, and they can contribute massively. And I think that these kind of circumstances, war situation, displacement, will encourage them to enforce or to rebuild the structure of local publishing. Yes, because definitely they will not, even after these circumstances, they will not be able to publish in international journals, and they cannot afford this ABC wall, definitely after this situation. So I think it is bad side having this conflicts and wars, especially in Sudan. I'm talking about Sudan context, Sudanese. But in the same time, you have to think differently and to look to another way. Yes, just to continue doing research, targeting that local publishing system. Yes.
Yes, the chance to, it is quite strange to say it, but you're right. If there is a rupture, there is a chance to, when you come back, to do things differently. And I think the situation in Sudan is awful on so many levels. I hadn't even thought about its effects on research. Had something similar from other regional conflicts, for example, Ethiopia and the DRC. And I think you make an excellent point. And yeah, thank you very much for raising that.
Thank you very much, Hala, for raising that. And I think that's a very important comment on how conflict can actually affect research. It's more political, but then it goes down to researchers and hindering how we actually communicate and put our work out there. So I think that's a very interesting comment.
And one that's not dealt with quite often enough. So yeah, very much thank you for raising that, because I haven't heard that brought up very often at all, and it's crucial to understanding how things work, especially in the South.
True. That's very true. And I think we have a comment from Joy as well, that the more we publish in our journals, the more the quality and maybe trust can also increase. So I think it's something that you mentioned as well, Kelly.
Absolutely, I completely agree with that.
Okay, and
sorry.
We have a comment.
Sorry.
Okay, no problem. A comment is if the AJOL journal hosted on multiple platforms can be aligned with AJOL's version, and number two, if AJOL journals can adhere to the DOAG criteria and be included in DOAG.
Yeah. Well, we're trying. One thing that AJOL does battle with consistently is that we rely on our partner journals to update us when they go through changes. For example, a new board comes in, or they change their author guidelines, or for example, they switch from being an APC-based journal to Diamond Open Access. They are required in terms of our agreement that we sign to tell us, but life is life, and sometimes the information doesn't get through. So ideally, it is the case that the AJOL page and the journal's own website, if it exists, should align completely. That is also on our wish list, and we're working towards it actively at the moment. We're doing consistency checks, because it's obviously better that that everything matches, of course. I'm sorry, that goes without saying, but staff changes and so on, requires a bit of tidy up. And if all AJOL journals can adhere to the DOAJ criteria and be included on the DOAJ, and it's funny that should come up, because I have had that very discussion with Joe. And although I am fully in favor of things matching as far as possible, I do think that any application of a global entity's criteria to local journals is going to require a little bit of flexibility. But again, the DOAJ and AJOL's goals are aligned, so we're going to be working to bring the two things closer together in terms of requirements and criteria.
Sure. And Hala, there's a comment on the comment section, on the chat section, about publishing at Africa Archive anonymously. So if you could look into that and take the information, that will be helpful. I think another comment that we also raised is how, our science can actually become a little bit political as well. And I think this comes from how we communicate, as you mentioned earlier, about how we communicate and how we influence policy. So I think it's a very interesting thing that we highlighted today.
Science is inherently political, I think. Knowledge is always political. Knowledge is power. And the only way we will prevail is if we own our own power. We have the knowledge. We are responsible for its quality. We are responsible for getting it out there. That becomes ours. Yeah.
True.
Knowledge is this is all political. Change will only come from us.
I totally agree. Okay. I don't know if we have any questions in the chat. We're a little bit over our time. I don't see any more questions. And to the audience, as Kylie has posted before, you are free to email her or reach out to us as well. If you have any more questions, we'll be happy to answer those. With that, Kylie, I would like to thank you very much for this presentation. It was very informative. I think you touched on a lot of very interesting topics, as you know, from funding to how we put our work out there, how we communicate, to what's happening right now with AI, to how we can communicate in terms of policy. So it's interesting to hear about the work that you are doing. Thank you so much for giving us that insightful presentation.
Thank you for having me. I've thoroughly enjoyed this, and I very much enjoyed the Q&A and everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And to the audience, thank you very much for joining us. You are free to register for our other upcoming webinar sessions that we are currently running on Open Science. And if you have any more information that you'd like to know about, or if you'd like to ask anything, you are free to visit our website or email us. We'll be attending to your questions. Thank you so much for joining us. Until we meet again.
Thank you so much for having me.